Hello, my brilliant 250 students. This is going to be a short screencast on the laws that you will need to know for not only the midterm, but the Praxis PLT. So the first question is, why in the world do we need to know this, and what do we need to know? These are the big things that are on the ETS website, who produces Praxis, of what will be on your Praxis PLT. So we're going to hit all of these and get you ready for that Praxis. So the first thing we're going to talk about is federal, state, and local government. So if you don't know, everything in education comes down to money. So public schools are funded by a mixture of federal, state, and local funds. However, most of the decisions are made from the state level, not the federal level. So let's talk about what is decided at each level. So first of all, the teacher qualifications. Each state is a little bit different for that. For example, if you want to move to Texas after you graduate Nichols, you will have to look into their qualifications. They may have different certification tests that you need to pass, things like that. So each state determines teacher qualifications. Standards are also from the state. So you may have heard about Common Core and all the controversy behind it, and we are going to get into that next week. I'm not even touching that today. But know that at a state level, each state can choose to adopt Common Core. They can adopt Common Core with modifications, or they can do their own curriculum. So each state decides on which educational standards that they are going to meet. As far as assessments, it's not a state decision. It's actually a local decision. So think about what tests you took in high school and elementary school. You probably took the LEAP test if you went to a public school. In contrast, my kids are at a private school, so they take something called the PACT every year, and they don't take the LEAP test. So it just depends on your district and your school and as to what tests that you take. Okay, so let's do a little Praxis prep. Again, these questions are straight from the textbook on how to prepare for Praxis PLT. So the first, which of the following is a policy that a state government might set? Go ahead and read those. The answer is A, the standards. So the resources are a local decision. The textbook is a school-by-school local decision. And specific actions for failing schools, that's again a local decision. So just think about schools within Lafourche Parish, within Terrebonne Parish, versus over Calcasieu Parish or anything like that. So what we do with resources, textbook, and failing schools in Lafourche may not be the same as Calcasieu, even though we're in the same state. So which of the following is not a responsibility of local government? Read those. And the answer here is deciding qualifications for teacher certification. That Lafourche Parish can't say that their teachers have to do something different than Calcasieu Parish. That's done at a state level. Okay, again, these aren't fun things to do, but they're on Praxis, they're on the midterm. So let's just discuss them and try to figure them out together. So, equal access. I had to go through all of these court cases to really unpack them and understand them. So I want to give you just some really hands-on experience with this and figure out what they are. First of all, for the midterm, you will not need to know specific court cases. Praxis right now does not do specific court case. That could change. So I have them here for you. So equal access forbids public schools from receiving federal funds, again, everything back to money, if students are denied the First Amendment right to conduct meeting based on religious, political, philosophical, or other contents of the speech and at such meetings. That doesn't mean much to me. Let's get some examples. So if you wanted to have a young Catholic club at your school. Would that be legal? The answer is yes, it would be legal. However, they cannot meet during school time. Okay, so that would have to meet after school or before school or on the weekend. So let's look at these examples. A chess club in which you are the moderator. I kind of think this one's iffy. The law says that a teacher can attend during school hours, but not participate. What does that participate mean with you as a moderator? Does that mean you can't play chess with them? Does that mean you can't talk chess with them? So that one's a little iffy. So math tutoring club that assists with homework help, that is absolutely fine. Volleyball team that practices after school, that's absolutely fine. And this was our first example, Catholic Students Club that volunteers on weekends. That's absolutely fine. But if they were meeting during school times, that would not be cool. Okay, next. FERPA. Most of you have heard about FERPA. FERPA is all about confidentiality. And I love to tell this story. People always ask me why I prefer teaching college over when I taught middle school. And I tell them exactly this, because I don't have to deal with parents. You guys, if your parents are worried about your grades in my class, they can call me all they want, but because of FERPA, legally, I cannot talk to them about anything if you are over the age of 18. And I like that. So let's talk about this with another lens. So if your parents want to come to the College of Education and look at your folder upstairs, can they do that? Absolutely not. You would have to do that. On the other hand, if parents want to go, if they're under 18, they can examine the school records. So that age 18 is what FERPA really goes with. Okay, next. We're going to have a praxis prep here. If a student changes schools, what would need to be done for the new school to get the student's records? The big thing here is sign written agreement. A principal cannot call another principal and ask for records. It has to be a signed written agreement. Now, where the area gets gray for me is, what about an e-signature? What about an email? So those things are still a little gray with FERPA and confidentiality. So you want to, just to cover all bases, not do it through e-signatures and emails, but have written permission to get those records. Okay, First Amendment. I think we all know what the First Amendment is, but we really want to talk about how this relates to the classroom. And to do that, I think the examples really helped me. So think about, do y'all remember when COVID first started and there was a video of a girl all over social media in Atlanta videotaping that there was no social distancing and there was very little mask wearing, and that student got suspended? So was that protected under the First Amendment right? Again, gray area, okay? So the school claimed that it was hurting their reputation by that video being out there. So they were just in suspending that student. Just look at the lens through the First Amendment. Don't talk about CDC, don't talk about anything like that. The child did not post it to anything school owned. So it's really a gray, that situation to me is really a gray area. You cannot post on school websites. So let's look back to this first court case. So a student wrote an article for the school paper and the principal deleted it because it hurt the reputation. That one's very clear cut. It was a school paper. It was sponsored by the school. So the school has the right to delete it. Here's something different. Back in the Vietnam War, a student wore a black armband in protest. The student was asked not to do it, was suspended. She wore black clothes the rest of the year to protest instead of just the black armband. The Supreme Court said that was absolutely fine in that case. So the First Amendment with regard to education is really talking about who owns what you're doing. If the school owns a website, if the school owns a newspaper, then they have the right to do whatever they want with it. But if the school does not, that gets into those legal gray areas. I am definitely not an attorney, but that's how I interpret it. Okay, next, intellectual freedom. You'll hear this a lot on college campuses. For example, last semester, I taught a section of 250 and the dean taught a section of 250. They were very, very different courses. Now, the objectives for the courses were the same, but what you got out of those two courses was very different because we each have a different style of teaching courses. In K-12, you have a lot of the same. So this first court case was actually in Louisiana in '87. So the law in Louisiana said that if evolution was taught, that creationism also must be taught. Supreme Court said that was not cool, and that law was promoting religious purposes by making that mandated. So that court case went against the state of Louisiana and that law. Another one here is a teacher fired over her choice to use a classroom game after it was considered unorthodox by officials. So it was a classroom management game, and it worked really well for this teacher, but you had to be a quote-unquote member to access this game, and the teacher was the only member. So this court case ruled against the teacher and said that they could not use this game in the classroom because they were the only one that had access to the game and nobody else. Next few I really find easy to understand, and you really need to take note of this. You are mandated by law to report any suspected child abuse or neglect. You need to know the difference between abuse and neglect. Abuse is the infliction of acts that endanger the physical, mental, or emotional health of a child. Look at these examples: inadequate supervision, exploitation or overwork of a child, involvement of a child in any sexual act. If you suspect anything, you are mandated by law to go to your school counselor, go to your school principal, and let them open an investigation. If you are mistaken and there's another explanation, they will figure it out, but you are mandated by law. So the difference between abuse and neglect. Neglect is the refusal or unreasonable failure of a parent or caretaker to supply the child with necessary food, clothing, shelter, care, treatment. You will see this in your classroom. You'll have the kindergartner that comes in and they're not bathed after multiple days, and their family life is just not taking care of them like they need to. You are absolutely mandated by law to turn them in, to open an investigation with your principals. Mandated reporters who report suspicions in good faith are protected from all legal retaliation or threat of termination. So here's some more praxis prep. What are some of the symptoms of verbal abuse of a child? Which of the following might indicate physical abuse? I think you guys can answer those. I am running out of time, so right now I'm going to end this recording, and I'm going to have to start a new recording because I have a 15-minute time limit here, but I promise we're almost done.